You put out a tweet on the 20th February and say, on NBS TV, Andrew Mwenda goes off the matter under discussion, which is the illegal detention of Besigye, and brings up my relationship with President Museveni. If it is really of interest to him, he should wait for my book. It's an interesting story.
Yeah.
What do you think was the intention of this?
I don't know, because he seemed to want very much to remind people that a long time ago I had a relationship with President Museveni, and yeah, I did. but what relevance was it there? It was of no relevance.
What relevance is it now in this case?
None at all. Absolutely none. I mean, President Museveni is somebody I've known since I first became aware of the world. He was in my home, visiting our home when I was maybe 3 years old. I've known him all my life. So why he features there is not relevant, really. But I think that Mwenda just thought that this was an interesting angle. So I also threw it at him and said, okay, if you are interested, just wait for my book.
So if it's not relevant, then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, I'm sure you've thought about this, then the book.
I think some people think that maybe that the relationship has an element of scandal, and maybe it makes me uneasy. They couldn't be more wrong. They are so wrong. This is a relationship that I had so many years ago, and my views about it is that it was a normal relationship with some challenges, and I left it, but it's nothing to be, it's not interesting for the political discussion. It's just interesting between us, that's all.
But you found it interesting to put it in a book?
No, I mean, in my book, it's not a significant thing in the book, but it's just one of those events that happened in my life, a small event.
So when should we expect this book?
No, I don't know. It's very far. No, that I don't know.
In your work with the UN, how concerned? I know UN really pushes a lot, of course, on the protection of human rights. How concerned are your bosses, for you especially?
My bosses are very concerned about my personal situation. They support me to fight for my husband. And at another level, our High Commissioner for Human Rights has spoken, asking for Dr. Besigye to be released and for respect for the rule of law and the Constitution. So that's where we are.
Do you dream of a political future?
Not quite.
Do you intend to run for office at some point?
I've not made up my mind on that.
So is that a no or yes?
I said, I've not made up my mind. It's not a decision I've made.
Would you run for president? You said you are interested in fighting for the people. That through your experience with your husband, you've discovered that there's a lot of injustice going on, and sometimes maybe the political gloves could address that.
I could, but it's not something I've considered. I could run. I'm capable of running. I'm capable of running a country, but I've not planned it and I've not been thinking about it.
With the case lately, has it become more clear that you need to?
No, not necessarily.
Do you feel constrained by your diplomatic title? That you cannot release as much as you can about this government? You cannot put stuff out there?
No,
do you feel constrained by your job?
Well, yeah, constrained from taking partisan positions. I'm not going to be... Unfortunately, right now, I don't even belong to any political party. I used to belong to FDC, then they stole it. And another party is being formed, but it's not ready yet. I'm not in any political grouping, and I don't speak for any party. So my rules don't allow me to be partisan, and so I'm not. But I can defend my husband. I can speak on human rights issues. I can speak about the state of human rights in my country. These are things I can do. So I have enough space to defend my husband and to defend others who are victims of human rights.
The NRM caucus sat with the chairman, President Museveni, on discussions to amend the UPDF Act. Some changes. What sort of changes would you like to see in the General Court Martial?
I'm not sure of the intentions of President Museveni and that caucus. I have a feeling that they are trying to reverse the ruling of the Supreme Court about military courts. And if that is the case, that would be most unfortunate. It would be illegal to reverse a decision made by a court, by an act of parliament. But I'm not sure yet. But we are watching carefully to see what it is that they want to achieve. There were clear orders of the Supreme Court which they should have moved and acted on, which they haven't, like this one of moving the files. They hadn't even done that. And now they are moving to act on some advisory things that the Supreme Court made. Seems an upside-down way of doing things. But the most important thing is that they respect the ruling of the Supreme Court, that they do not use the military court-martial for anything else but the disciplinary issues of the military. That is the whole importance of that. They can make improvements on it, put some lawyers and all of that, but they should not try again to bring civilians, opposition, to be tried by the army.
So let me tell you, according to the communication, at least from the government chief whip, the resolutions were to support the proposed amendments, and these are the amendments, that misconduct by serving military personnel be tried in the first instance by the military court-martial with the right of appeal through the civilian courts. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
The second one is that civilians who acquire specified firearms illegally be tried by the military court-martial in the first instance, but with the right of appeal through the civilian courts.
No. That is what was stopped. That's what they are trying to bring back. It shouldn't be. The civilian courts have proved themselves able to handle criminality of any kind. Now, if you get a little gun and you go and you shoot someone, then you go to the military court. I mean, you think about it. How many people are using guns in crimes? Now all the crime is going to go to the military. What capacity do they have? They don't have the independence to try such cases. That is trying to reverse what the Supreme Court has said, and that's wrong.
And the third one is that provision be made to provide for rights of appeal from decisions of court-martial to civilian courts.
He's trying to come back with what he had. He's trying to restore the court-martial to where it was. And that's undermining the decision that's already made. It should be opposed.
The civilian courts, you've been in court so many times. At 2001, with Ngoma Njime, have courts improved over time? This is what, 24 years later, or have they deteriorated over time?
From what I gather, it seems that they have become worse and worse. It seems that the level of corruption has increased from what I hear, and I'm really basing myself on anecdotes. I've not looked at any reviews of the courts and whatever. But from what I hear, it seems that courts have got worse, that there's more corruption in the courts, that there is more the hand of the military deciding court decisions. I'm told that even there's a little office of the army in the High Court building, that they decide which case goes to who, that they're interfering with the judiciary. These are the things I'm hearing, but I don't have any basis like a review of what's going on there.
Right. You say that you're not shocked by what President Museveni and General Muhoozi are doing today. Are these the people you've known over time, or they have changed,
No, I
especially the
don't know.
president?
I don't know his son, but the president, 40 years in power, definitely he's changed. He's older, he's slower, but he's more autocratic, and he's less and less connected with what's happening. So I see him as someone who's isolated because the people around him are so afraid of him. He doesn't get from them the real picture, so he's not always understanding what's going on. I also see him as paranoid. He's worried that power is slipping from his hands, and it is. At that age, he's slower, and people are making decisions that they normally might have taken to him. So he feels power slipping, and he gets very worried. He's somebody used to the total control of power. So he gets paranoid. And sadly, I see him becoming more and more ruthless because he's scared. He's scared about the end coming, about uncertainty of who will replace him. So I really see somebody who needs to make a plan to exit and exit. Otherwise, he's going to be making more and more and more mistakes.
And what is the risk to that, especially for the country?
The risks are huge.
What is at stake?
A lot is at stake. This country needs to be growing. Its economy needs to be growing. We need to be attracting investments. We need to be expanding sectors that can create jobs for young people. All this means that the country should be open for trade, for investors. They can't come in such a situation of uncertainty in where one person who is old and tired dominates every sector. People cannot be sure that their money is going to be safe here, or that they themselves will be safe here. So that's one. Two, also you see young people looking for jobs, not getting the jobs, and you see a whole generation we are losing. Just because if they don't work, they get their 40s, they have not had any training, no work. You're losing a whole generation of people who would be growing the economy. So there's that huge loss in terms of the human resource. And then you get more and more corruption because people have no faith in the future. So resources are diverted by people to make a little saving for their family. They are not sure of the future. So clinics have no medicines, schools, exploitation, extortion from students. Services fail. So really we start to crumble. And it's not good. It's not good. He needs to make a clear plan of exit that will keep the country moving forward.
Thank you very much. Let's take a break. When we return, way forward on where this case goes, and also there are public statements from the CDF about the execution of Dr. Kano Chiza Besigye. What are Winnie Byanima's fears? All that after this break. This is the big talk. In convicting.
You're right that he has been charged with treason before. He was charged with treason in 2005. That was dismissed by the courts. He was charged with treason in 2016, I believe. That one the state didn't pursue. And now here we are again. I know that Kizza Besigye is innocent. And I know that the courts will clear him. that's why we've been saying, bring him to a proper court. We will go there. So let's wait and see.
As you wait, there are fears, especially with the statement from the CDF about his execution.
I think that son is really be helped and to find medical care. Those are not things that anybody would say if they are sane. Also, if you are the army commander and the court martial falls under you, you cannot decide that somebody before the court that is under you is already guilty and you've decided where you're going to hang them and you've decided the sentence and where you're going to hang them and when. It just is not done. It's totally unacceptable, but I think that he's suffering from some condition and needs to be helped to address his issues. So we've just dismissed what he has said, but the most important fact is that comes out of that is that this can't be justice. You can't be, President Museveni is your accuser, because they're saying basically wants to kill him. He's the head of the army. And then he is the court. The court martial falls under his son, and from his son it is to him. And then the prosecutor is also a soldier who reports to the army. And then the sentencing is being made by his son. I mean, that's not justice. You can't be the one who is accusing, who is judging, who is sentencing. It's just not right. I think that helps people to see clearly why the military court should never be the place where you take your opposition.
Do your fears grow by each day that goes by and the clock ticks towards Heroes Day when the CDF said he would execute your husband?
Well, that now is gone. The Supreme Court, thank you, Justice Owinyedolo and your panel, they decided that the Army Court cannot decide that. But if that was still there, would be counting days towards the hanging. Yeah, but thank God that was stopped. But it doesn't take away the fact that he's a man with a lot of power. I worry about all those soldiers that work under him because he really does show signs of instability.
What do you think about the politics of this country? The opposition, you said you once belonged to FDC before it was stolen, like you said. What do you think about the politics of this country with new entrants like Robert Chagulanyi? Other people who are still fighting for liberation, like General Munshamuntu. Do you think you, as Winnie, have a role to play?
I think it's a very positive thing that the opposition keeps growing, that we have new parties that engage especially our young people. Because let's face it, the parties that we formed, when we formed them, were much younger and we attracted young people. But now we are older and we may have support, but young people also flock to younger leaders. All that is good. We need a huge movement that is going to push for democratic change. They need to work together. They need to play roles in the whole opposition that complement each other. And I see it happening. They have come together around political detainees and around Kizza Besigye. So that's a positive development. What is not positive is the role that President Museveni plays in undermining, closing the space, making the space so dangerous for his opponents to operate. When you look at each of these parties, it's broken into 2 or even 3 parts. And that's him. It's him. He uses money to buy off some. He uses threats and intimidation, and this court we are talking about, to break off some of them. So the space for opposition is not a healthy space. They operate in a very, very dangerous, restricted, poisoned space. It's a shame, because if you want a good government with good laws, with good institutions, you want to have an opposition that is safe enough to do its job. It's not the case here.
Do you worry about Uganda post-Museveni?
I do. I worry. I worry at the uncertainty and the kind of I worry about being plunged into uncertainty after him. 40 years in power, when he's leaving and there's no clear, transparent and inclusive process for change, you're likely to have pretenders trying to fill the space. Those pretenders are likely to come from the military. I have a fear that people in the military are watching closely. They worry for themselves. They're usually the worst victims of any abrupt change, and will want to avoid an abrupt change. I have a feeling that they must be very worried about what could happen if President Museveni were gone suddenly, the soldiers. And who knows, they might take different views about what should happen to fill the space. So it worries me that you might have even disagreements in what should be a united army about the change. So that's why all this is so important, that President Museveni engages in dialogue with his opposition and works with them towards the steps that should be taken leading to his replacement. I'm thinking, for example, there need to be an agreement about the Electoral Commission that would manage an election where he is no longer a candidate. It needs to have some understandings about the army and its role in the political process. It needs to have some amendments to the Constitution to make sure that there are certain guarantees that are brought back. So I don't understand why he isn't doing this, because it's in his interest. It's an interest for his family. It's in the interest of all the people whom he has empowered to be in positions of leadership. It's important that there's a discussion about this transition, some agreements, and then he can leave.
I have 2 last questions. One is, for the sake of the freedom of your husband, have you reached out to other people who are close to President Museveni to find ways on maybe making him understand what is at stake with this case going on?
No, I haven't.
Would you be open to that?
If I found it useful, I could reach him myself. I don't need to go through another person. He has always been open to speak to me if I call him. But I haven't felt that at this point I need to, because he is saying that my husband has committed crimes. All I wanted was for him to come before a civilian court and answer those charges. Let us see what comes up, because I would never want to go to him, never would go to him to say, forgive Besigye the crimes he has committed. No.
Maybe not forgive him, but to say this case and the way it's proceeding, there's a lot at stake, and the state could be the loser here?
Uh-uh.
Because you say he's the accuser.
He is the accuser, and I want that to be heard in the court. There can be a moment to discuss about the future of the country. That's another discussion. I might look for him on that, on what kind of transition will lead us safely to the next leader. But I cannot go to him to ask him to withdraw the case against Kizza Besigye. No, bring it on. Let it be heard, because he's innocent. So there's no asking for mercy. There's no asking for pull out the case. No, bring the case, let him answer it. Then you can talk about where do we take the country.
With the way he's treating your husband, you hold any personal vendetta against him now?
Against President Museveni? Not really, no. I am angry with him, and I can lash out in anger at him, but I try not to personalize these things. I try to look at what's happening to everybody. Look, my husband's case has drawn attention to tens of cases of unknown people who were abducted, thrown in jail, and are rotting in jail, or others taken, disappeared forever. So you got to see it in that context, that what's happening to Ugandans and to all of us. So that doesn't make me bitter with him, because bitter is a personal thing. No, it makes me angry that our country has gone to that point. It makes me want to fight Besigye's case, but also be fighting the cases of all these other people.
And you also talked about releasing evidence on numerous times he has tried to kill your husband.
Yes, I will come up with that at a good
when
moment. Let this case come. Because you see, there's a principle. There is a principle in court, in law, that you come to the court with clean hands, right? Clean hands. Meaning now, you don't go kidnap somebody and you bring them, and then you go to court to accuse them. Because the very act of kidnapping it, you've committed a crime against him. Now you want to accuse him of another crime against you. But what about the crime you've done against him? There's the principle of clean hands. So, in law, so he has that issue, that he uses criminal means against his opposition and then wants them to be found criminal, to be found to have committed crimes. It's a contradiction. Now, on the political side, I'm also able to show that this man who is so eager to punish people for wanting to kill him has also been doing the same to other people. This is now a moral test. I will put it there. Let the case start.
You've been investigating.
Hey, we've been here a long time. Remember, we first challenged him in 2001. He was taken by surprise and so traumatized. He meted out the worst violence in an election. Canary, we lost people. People we started with in the campaign, whom we didn't finish the campaign with. People we finished the campaign with, but were being looked for, grabbed, taken to safe houses, killed. We never saw again. So, I mean, we've been living through this, losing people, and they cannot even hide because some people were killed in their safe houses. In their hands, we picked the bodies and buried.
Right. My last question, how is Anselm? How is he coping? What questions does he have about the father and his incarceration?
It's hard on him because he's in the middle of his term, he's working, But he says he finds it hard to concentrate. He finds that the difficult texts he has to read are hard to penetrate. And yeah, he calls me a lot to find out what's going on. He's not, he's affected. He's affected.
I can imagine. So the press conference coming up by you and other parties, is that when you intend to release this information you're talking about?
Not really, not yet.
Not yet. You're waiting for the case to come up.
Yeah.
Winnie Byanyima, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
hosting
Canary.
and thanks for making time.
Yes, you're a good journalist.
Thank you very much. Big Talk returns on Monday, 7 to 8 p.m. My name is Kanar Mugume. Thanks to everyone who has been part of this show. And the hashtag on X is hashtag Next Big Talk. Good morning.
How do you say your name? Canary.
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 Yes.
What's that name? Where do you get it from?
So on UBC, there was a news anchor called Charles Canary Mugisha.